can import people's like MyFitnessPal logs into our software, so we can actually look at the food that they're eating. We can provide different kinds of advice. Maybe we'll completely take tracking your food out of the equation, and we'll just work on the behavior and habit side of things. I think what we operate from the lens of just trying to transform your life in some way, and if we bend the rules, that's okay. Like we really believe a diet that doesn't bend is going to break.
There we go.
That's the one. Better keep listening.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. Back at On It. We're hanging out here in Texas. Our boy, Douglas E. Larson, hanging out. Strong Coffee in the house. Mr. Von Rothfelder. Yo, today, Adee Cazayoux is in the house, and it's super exciting because you're one of those people that I just have known for so long without ever actually meeting you. I feel like we just, through the internet, through the interwebs, I'm so excited to be here and talk about all the things. Just pre-show, you gave us relationships, nutrition. I don't even know where we're going with this thing.
Right.
But I'm excited to just, you have so much experience working with such high-level athletes and just the regular Joe. The lens that you view success through is super cool to me, and I'm really excited to hear kind of your thoughts on what separates people from success and failure and how we can start to implement these things into people's lives.
Cool. I mean, I am so excited to be here. Barbell Shrugged is like, part of my life forever. I love this show. I love all the people involved with this show. So it's definitely like my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, what is like your fourth time coming on a show? Something like that?
Well, actually, technically, I think it's my fifth, but one of the Barbell Business episodes didn't air.
Ooh. Don't worry.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
I don't know who's in charge here, but
to make it worse, we posted Michael's show.
I know.
but not your show.
Look, there's a level of quality content that we need to actually post, so a lot of pressure here today.
Bring the heat.
That was exactly a year ago, and Michael is up next, so maybe this year we won't post this show.
Ooh,
No,
don't tell him. Don't
post
tell him.
his, post his.
Okay.
But you guys have been on a little bit of an adventure, moving from Vancouver
Oh my gosh.
all the way down to Austin over the last 2 years, 3 years.
Well, we started in Salt Lake City.
Living in a van down by the river.
Yeah, living in a van.
There it is. Find a river. There you go.
Live by it.
Different mountain every day.
Oh, that's solid. Right, really?
That's what we did, yeah.
That's killer. And you made it all the way up to Vancouver?
We went from Salt Lake City through Yellowstone, Tetons to Vancouver, then down to Seattle.
Yeah.
And once we got to Seattle, it was like, wow, it's really hard to run an online business from a trailer.
I have no signal. Where are we?
Yeah.
I need to find a coffee shop.
No,
Where's a library?
for real.
the
That's what
middle
it
of the
started
desert.
being. So
Yeah, you're like stalking outside of the local library that's free Wi-Fi. You're
Right.
like, I gotta get inside somehow.
Yeah. Siri.
So hey, let's zoom back out for a minute. So for the people that don't know who you are and haven't seen the past episodes you've been on, like who
Cool.
are you? How'd you get here? How do we all know each other?
So my name is Adee Cazayoux, and I am the CEO and founder of a company called Working Against Gravity, an online nutrition coaching company that basically attempts to help transform your life through nutrition. We do that in many different ways, most primarily by finding a nutrition program that fits your lifestyle. So that's what we do. It's like a mix of nutrition coaching and life coaching kind of at the same time. And how do we know each other? Well, we met for the first time at the Barbell Mastermind in 2015. I think it was the first. No, we met the year before that in Miami at the Seoul Open at a weightlifting meet. I mean,
you're hanging out with Travis Mash, who was a good buddy of ours,
Right.
and then we became friends through him.
Right, exactly. So I was training with Travis Mash in summer of 2014, which is like where Working Against Gravity started, and that's how I got here.
Yeah, and then you and Michael met at the Barbell Mastermind,
Yes, we call you guys the Barbell Matchmakers.
Ooh, look at that. Look at that.
Love connection.
That's right.
Chuck Woolery over here.
Well, we were laughing last night. We had Bledsoe and Mark England and a couple people over for dinner, and we were laughing about how, you go to a mastermind, they're like, you're going to 10x your return. And I'm looking at Michael, I'm like, we definitely 10x our return.
We did it. Success.
Yes.
That's amazing.
We're like a great testimonial for you guys, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, actually, if for the people that do know about Working Against Gravity and how fucking phenomenal that success has been for you. We did Barbell Businesses with you two or three maybe, where the first one was probably like within the first 6 months, and the next one was like maybe a year later. And so like you can go back and listen to those early episodes and get you can hear what it was like for you to actually start that company like in that moment. Not like your recap of what it was like, but like what it was like in the moment of like, okay, we don't know what's going to happen. Here's where we are right now. And then listen to the one a year later, and then you can hear how you're doing right now. It's cool to be able to actually go back and listen to that whole progression.
Yeah. I mean, I've listened to it a couple times before. Just like interested to see how far you've come. I'm listening to myself being like, wow, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. So how has it evolved for people that haven't listened to those past episodes?
Oh man, I mean, it started just completely by accident. I had a blog. I was training with Travis Mash in North Carolina. I really wanted to be a competitive Olympic weightlifter and compete internationally for Canada, and that was like all I was focused on. I had just finished my master's degree in teaching. I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher when all that was said and done. I still might be a kindergarten teacher one day. It's like not totally ruling that option out. I love kids. And I had a blog called workingagainstgravity.com, and I was documenting cutting a weight class, and people asked me how I was doing it and getting stronger at the same time. And then from there, a couple people started emailing me asking me to help them. And I just did that like through email, PayPal account, all that kind of stuff. And I realized, after a couple people, this is taking up some of my time, so I'm going to start charging people for it. And Travis Mash then offered it on his online weightlifting programming, and we got, I think it was like 80 people in one night.
Oh,
and
wow.
And that just
what was
boom.
At what rate? Like, what were you guys charging at the time?
I think it was $50 a month at the time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Right.
Though. What a great start.
So on day 2, you raised your rates.
yeah. Like, shit, we're not if they said 50 was too easy, it's like, damn, I should have asked for 100.
Yeah. What is it the saying? They're not complaining about your price and you're not charging enough.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
But since it's kind of grown, and now there's a bunch of CrossFit Games athletes that so starting out in the Olympic weightlifting world, and now the CrossFit, the piece is kind of taken off.
Yeah. So I currently coach 20 either team or individual CrossFit Games athletes.
Damn, that's a high level of fitness.
You want to name drop a few?
Do it.
Do it.
Oh gosh.
We're telling you to do it.
Katrin Davis' daughter, Brooke Entz, Brooke Wells, Tia Claire Toomey, Cara Webb.
So you got podiums.
Cole Sager. Yeah, we got 1 and 2 last year. Cole Sager, Cody Anderson, Christian Lucero, Molly Vollmer, Emily Abbott, Jennifer Smith, Alessandra Pacelli, Becca Voigt.
Damn.
Ooh.
Damn.
I'm missing somebody.
That's
for
a
sure.
gang.
I'm missing somebody.
That
Okay,
one person
yeah.
is listening right now.
I'm
like,
missing-
oh, she mentioned 20 other people. I forgot about me.
I'm missing some people.
We're discrediting her now.
We just had Emily on the show, so she's
She's awesome.
She's killing it.
She's so cool.
Her psychedelic gypsy fitness.
Yeah.
She's cool.
She's so cool.
What a great name.
Yeah, what a great name.
So getting into just kind of the basics of your approach in this, clearly working with such high level athletes, what does it look like when you start to structure this thing? How individualized is it for somebody at that level? And then how do we kind of back that down moving forward to just the regular person that's trying to live a healthy life?
Right.
Learn about this nutrition piece.
Yeah, I think something that like most people are generally surprised by is like the way that I would approach the nutrition for any of these athletes. It's super similar to the way that I would approach it to any normal person. Is really just starting with something and monitoring things over time and getting to know them and their lifestyle. Each and every single one of those games athletes has different nutrition programs. Like they're eating different things. Some of them are tracking their macros every single day. Some of them are doing it a couple days a week. Some of them they have different numbers for different days, or they have the same numbers for every day. It's really totally different, where you have an athlete like Brooke Wells, who's a senior in university, and she still wants to party with her friends sometimes. And we have to like manage nutrition around that, and how, she's not going to look back on her senior year of college and be like, I missed out. And then you have somebody like Katrin Davis' daughter, who's 2-time fittest woman on earth. She's got opportunities up to here, and she has a lot of flights to go on. She wants to go back to Iceland to visit her family. She wants to spend time with her family. We're managing nutrition around that. So it's got to look different for each of them. It's similar in some ways, but it really just is about finding a way for them to feel amazing, be consistent, and being conscious about the food choices that they're making instead of just, being stressed out by it. Like, I'm trying to take the stress off of them.
Yeah.
I'm worrying about it so that they can just focus on training and recovery and what they're responsible for.
You mentioned the consistency, and we talked a little bit pre-show of how that really is just the the secret sauce to all of it. Can you show up and do it every single day? And people miss that so much because, I mean, Brooke Wells, she's in college. There's a lot of things going on in college that are not fitness-based,
right.
To say the least. But what I often notice with these people is their ability to eliminate the variables, and how success really is created by creating this like streamlined approach to it. And how are you showing people, or how do we eliminate kind of the questions and the variables that they face in their daily life? Like, what do you do with Brooke, where she needs to be able to go out and party and have a good time, but show up at the gym tomorrow morning and probably be able to work out for 4 hours or whatever the hell's going on?
An incredible amount. It's simpler than people want to believe. Like, it's not this like magic secret that's something that you've never heard before. It's really just failing a bunch of times, making a bunch of mistakes, reflecting back on maybe why that happened, how you were feeling about it. And then for her, it might be, before you go to the bar, deciding how many drinks you're going to have beforehand and what kind of drinks they're going to be.
How do I know how many drinks?
I don't understand.
It's impossible to know.
You only bring $30.
Right.
In college, that'll take you 3 days to get rid of.
Oh, true. Beer's like $2 or something.
So it's like decisions like that, or deciding, it depends on what the hang up for you is. So like if your hang up is after the bar, my inhibitions are lowered and my friends are going to crush a whole pizza and I'm going to want to crush a whole pizza. Maybe it's deciding like.
How did you know that?
And
that's totally not me for the record.
It's just deciding maybe deciding beforehand what you're going to eat. And if that works out, cool. If it doesn't and you end up going over or not following the plan, being open and honest about it and talking about it, and then we can move on and learn from it. It's really I think people want it to be so complicated, but it's just not that complicated.
It's a long-term approach to something that you have to do 3-4 times a day or whatever it is, and all the people think that one meal matters. It's like, how about we talk about the next 1,000 meals that you have?
There's something I love about the zone diet. There's a saying, it's it only takes one more meal to be back in the zone.
Yeah.
And it's like
Very
so
serious.
true. Like it's so true. It only really takes one more meal to get back on your program. You don't have to like starve yourself because you overate. It just takes one more meal to be back on your program or back on track or feeling amazing. It just takes one more meal to be back where you want to be.
I feel like a lot of people are trying to fix the past instead of just forgetting about it and just starting clean right now in the moment.
Yeah.
That's a great mindset.
Yeah.
One meal away from eating perfect again, in a sense, or being, whatever you just the exact, way it's stated. It's cool to hear, how you're, actually taking someone's life, and it's like, hey, this chick wants to go out and drink. Well, it's like if you're gonna do that, you have to like count the calories, like whatever it is, like prior, and like make room for that, right? So, do you find that, somebody like her has a hard time doing that? I mean, is that
Brooke Wells is kind of an exception.
Right.
Rule.
She's also 21.
Right, but
she
even
gets a pass. You can recover so quickly.
Even across games athletes, though, her in particular, she's really even keeled, like not super emotional about food. She's super dedicated, really disciplined, and she really works very hard. So she takes any of my advice really seriously and really tries to actually implement it. So I think she's probably an exception to the rule, but sometimes it is difficult for people. Yeah, they're human. Like that's the biggest thing I've learned from working with elite level athletes is like sometimes I'm reading their check-ins. I'm like, you're so human. This is so awesome. Like this is so great. Like we're the same. Yeah. And it's just a lot of people want to believe that they're this other breed or they have something different than me, and it kind of puts yourself off the hook. Like, oh, I couldn't possibly be like them because they're different than me.
Like it's easier for them somehow.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm just not her, or I just could never be her. It's like really just letting yourself off the hook of being like the most amazing version of yourself when you really can be just like them. Maybe you won't achieve the exact same things as them, but you can improve in every single area of your life. There's nothing that you do that you can't get better at from working hard. You're not like there's no limit to how much you can get better. It's just they work really hard.
That's awesome.
By the way, I'm not sure I've told you this yet, but my mom, my mom started doing your program maybe like 8 months ago, and she's lost like 30 pounds. She's like a few pounds off of what she weighed when I moved when I was like 9 years old from Arizona to the Northwest. She's like almost at that same weight, and she looks fantastic.
That's my favorite thing in the world. Like Brooke Wells or Brooke Ents are great examples. Their mothers are also on the program. So it's like it's the same. It's really a similar approach for everybody. It's the simplest things are those are the hardest things. Like if you were already doing the simplest things, you wouldn't be looking for like the magic secret. You'd be like, oh, I'm crushing it. I already like know what else to do. But that is super, super awesome.
So that being said, what's the average age of someone that you're coaching right now? I mean, with nutrition, and do you find obviously there's complexities in the age ranges, right?
Yes, so we go from 16, we won't go any lower than 16, and 16 we have people in their 70s. So the average age is like 35 to 45.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's health and longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not super freaks.
Do you find that someone older has a hard time taking up like new concepts versus someone younger who the concepts aren't as like ingrained? So somebody who has this pattern that's been developing for 70 years. Like I eat bread with every dinner, and I have dessert after every, like growing up in my Midwest family, it was like roast beef, mashed potatoes twice a week. Everything else in between was BLTs and spaghetti, but there was always like chocolate cake at the end.
Sometimes.
And like breaking that, at 18, 19, whatever it was.
Sometimes, like, you're going to have a give and take with all those different kinds of people. So maybe younger people will think they know better, and they're not less likely to actually listen to advice. Or like, I don't actually want to. I know I signed up for your program, and I really want you to help me, but I don't actually really want you to help me. I just kind of want to think that I'm doing
a checklist.
everything.
Like I'm doing the thing.
Yeah. And sometimes with older people, it's actually easier because they're in such a routine already. Like, they're not traveling all over the place. They're not necessarily, like, they're in a job. They're in a routine. They're doing the same things all the time, and they love like being in routine, and they really thrive in that. Like, my mom is a perfect example of that. Like, she just like does the same thing every day, so it's super easy for her to be consistent versus someone younger. But I mean, we get all the kinds of people you could possibly imagine.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What are you learning in coaching? I feel like we all get to this point where it's like movement. We kind of get the basics of it. We've been doing it so long that it's easy to coach movement. Nutrition, okay, let's count some macros. We get the basics. We understand how carbs are going to affect our body. But where in your coaching kind of path are you, and what are you developing as a coach right now?
Right. I'm currently, I guess, 4/6 of my way through a master's in nutrition and human performance.
Damn.
So I'm almost done. I got 2 more semesters
Super
left.
academic, or are you doing this through like a private?
Through online school. Like,
Okay,
it's
cool.
called Logan University.
Dope.
It's really, really interesting. So right now where that's taking me is I'm learning a lot about obesity and sugar and different like compositions of your diet and how that affects like more, I guess, like medical issues, hormonal issues, that kind of stuff. So that
like
I'm learning
clinical nutrition.
Yeah, a little bit of clinical stuff. I'm like super fascinated by the obesity and like the different causes of obesity, how many different things could potentially cause it, from viruses to there's like some research out there on if obesity is like a pathological thing, or it's just really, I find it really, really interesting considering the rates of diabetes are increasing and all that cardiovascular disease and all that.
Do they dig into like the psychological factors that go into obesity and things like that? I feel like that whole area of research, it's been studied, and clearly people understand kind of the nutritional side of it, but there's so many pieces to it. Do they cover that past the nutritional stuff?
Not in our school. I mean, in the sense of there's always a mention, no matter what, of lifestyle factors and, exercise and like emotional eating habits, but not in depth, which I think there's probably schools out there for that kind of thing.
So
do you
find yourself like being someone who's in the trenches right now, like, and has been for a while, right? And you have a progressive, we have access to progressive information where like universities sometimes are a little delayed in information.
For sure.
Do you feel like sometimes when you're sitting in your master's program that you're like, wrong, right? Like, somebody I know, her father founded the American Heart Association diet, but he died of heart disease.
Oh gosh.
So it's like she now preaches keto, and has been for like 20 plus years. So it's interesting, and I'm not like, advocating any diet here, but do you just find that there's like this information that you're being fed sometimes where you're like, oh my God, like, this is what I'm here for right now? Like, this is not good information.
Right. Sometimes I sit there and I'm like, I could learn this like 4 times faster if I just did it by myself, and not necessarily through like the schedule that they have me on. Sometimes I feel that way. I don't think I would like learn some of the things that they're teaching me. I don't think I would actually research that kind of thing on my own. So in that way, I'm actually appreciative. And then a lot of ways, it's actually like reaffirming. I'm like, oh, okay, we're like not hurting people. Like this is great. Like what we're talking about is great. Like we're on the right track. We're really, really actually genuinely helping people. It's not, I haven't read anything that I'm like, woo, that's like super wrong. It's,
right.
Not yet.
At one time in a previous life, I was in nursing school. And I just remember going through basic nutrition and pharmacology and just being like, this is what we're telling people, and I was like, I don't think I could be a part of this, and it was just like the type of nutrition that I'm like feeding people as a nursing assistant at, the hospital I'm working at, where I'm like, this is the food I'm giving to a guy who just had a kidney transplant.
Oh.
And it was kind of like, I'm confused. Like, this isn't real food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Sloppy
just
doughs and green jello.
Yeah. And I mean, I just sometimes, I think that it's amazing what universities have access to with like information like Dr. Andy Galpin and like being able to research. But then I feel like sometimes the textbook and the curriculum doesn't match the current current studies.
Yeah.
And then you're like delayed in information.
Behind. Yeah. There are a lot of great resources out there. I mean, Alan Aragon has a monthly membership where he posts a newsletter with all of like the most recent nutritional research out there, and you can read that kind of. There are resources out there that have that kind of information, which I look at on my own. Yeah, but it is helping me look at things that I don't think I would ever look at obesity as in-depth as I'm doing it right now in this current course.
Yeah, if you're mostly dealing with people that are in kind of the functional fitness, CrossFit space, like most of them don't come to you like obese.
Right.
They might be a little overweight, but it's probably not most of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like in your estimation, like how many obese people out of like the thousands of people you trained you have? Like it's like 1 or 2%?
Yes, less probably, even less, maybe like 0.5%.
Yeah. So if you're learning more about obesity and like you already have like this in-depth knowledge with more of an athletic crowd, do you have plans to like create a division specifically for obese people in the future? Is that like something you're that interested in, or is it just something you think is kind of fun to learn about?
I think it's kind of fun to learn about. You gave me this great advice one time. You're like, you're amazing at one thing. Just keep doing the one thing and just do that one thing really well. Mm-hmm. So
you're like, I'm going to do everything. And I was like,
hey,
that's a damn good
shut up.
No, it was
you killed it.
I was sitting in a hot seat, and everybody was like throwing these ideas out at me of like what I could possibly do. And you were just sitting there, just like doing your thing where you like move around and you're like going, and then you're waiting.
Always impression.
Yeah. Not to yell at everyone.
He's like not saying anything.
No.
But then it ended, and you're like, can I talk to you for a second? And you pulled me aside, and
Come
you're
on
like,
over.
I know they're all giving you these great ideas, but like, trust me, just do this. You're already doing something amazing. Keep doing this one thing. Only do that.
Sage advice.
Smashing it. Just do like 10x it in a year.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Step into my office.
And then you did.
And I think we still have a ton of room to grow. Like, there's still so much opportunity for us to continue to grow and make change and impact a lot of people in the space that we're already in. So I'm really happy with where we're at.
That space, though, is super crowded, especially now. Like, I feel like this macro thing just, like, kind of took over. And everywhere I go, there's somebody telling me I need a macro plan for my life. What is kind of separated? What is that one thing that Doug sees in you, and now you're 10xing your life on?
Ooh, what is that one thing?
Oh. You didn't even tell her?
She has to figure it out for herself.
That's wisdom.
That's the journey. That's the journey, figuring out what you got.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
If I told you, you would not learn it.
I think, well, a lot of those people are our members, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like that have created their own companies and are now so impacted by it that they want to inflict change for other people. I think what we do is, like, I'm not totally parked in any particular camp for certain. Like, even macros, like maybe 2 years from now we won't be tracking macros. Like, maybe we'll be doing something a little bit different. I think it's really working for the population of people that we're with right now, and it's a really great way to monitor things, but maybe we'll do something completely different. And like right now we just we can import people's like MyFitnessPal logs into our software, so we can actually look at the food that they're eating. We can provide different kinds of advice. Maybe we'll completely take tracking your food out of the equation and we'll just work on the behavior and habit side of things. I think what we operate from the lens of just trying to transform your life in some way, and if we bend the rules, that's okay. Like we really believe a diet that doesn't bend is going to break. So I think that's what we do. Maybe differently, we really go like above and beyond to get to know you and what is actually hanging you up, instead of, you check in with your coach and they're like, you just need to hit your macros better. It's like, that's just not enough. Like, you can't, just because if they're not hitting their macros, like, why? Or what can we do that's different than that? Like, let's try something completely different. We're out to just create some type of transformation. And sometimes it's like not nutrition related at all. Like, I've had my favorite testimonials are somebody that's left their job and moved across the country and had the courage to go for their dream job just because of being part of this program, or salvaged marriages, or saved relationships with their parents, or seen something that's going on with their mom and be like, hey, like, I now see what issues that you're having with food. Like, I can help you, and that helped add 10 years to their parents' life. So
I think
that's
maybe
amazing.
We're just allowed to, whatever that piece is, it could be fitness, it could be nutrition, but people just need to find like some little thing that they have some control over that's going to build a step forward to who they want to be, and realize that that is a catalyst, and it's just one step. If you did that one step in your relationship, it actually gets the same 10x result. But giving somebody just a little bit of a tool to move them forward in whatever that journey is.
Yeah, and just having, you build confidence, you build like integrity with yourself. Like, I'm actually doing what I said I was going to do, and that is like a keystone habit. It just trickles out. Like, it goes,
keystone habit?
Yeah.
I like that.
It ripples into every aspect of your life. We just happened to start with nutrition, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Like, it could be any area of your life. That's not the important piece to me. It's more you come thinking like, oh, I want abs, but maybe you leave realizing I just wanted to do something because I love myself, not do something because I wanted to. Yeah, people do things because they want to fix themselves. You don't like help yourself because you love yourself. Like, oh, I love myself and I just want to make myself better. It's, oh, like there's something wrong with me, so I want to fix it. We just like want to take away the barriers to stop you from, that are stopping you from seeing how amazing you already are.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that a lot of people think that there's like it ends in the kitchen or it ends in the gym, but it's like if you truly apply yourself to nutrition, and as you were saying, it like translates into everything. You know, and you have the ability just to push that much harder and persevere and have that dedication of, you know, like the 10,000 hour rule or whatever it is, and you just keep on making yourself and taking on more responsibility for your actions in a sense.
Sure.
It's just more responsibility for what you're doing.
Yeah. And we're the experts on what we do, but you're also the expert on you. Like, every single one of us has different genetics. We come from different places. Like, my parents are from Israel, and I'm like 100% Israeli, like first generation Canadian. So my genetics and what works well for me is going to be different than what works well for you. So we're like a team that's working together. I'm not trying to tell you or convince you or persuade you to do something a specific kind of way. Like, we're working together to make you happier.
Yeah.
That's all we want.
We're going to come back. I want to talk about how you kind of, I think so much of what, as a coach, the baseline that we try and do is just build trust with people so we can break down those barriers and really start to see kind of the vulnerabilities that people are dealing with that are actually holding them back. I want to know how you get into that next level with people. Let's do it.
Yep.
Strong Coffee Company is a community built by people like you. People that take the time to educate and to apply all things that matter. Whether you're in the gym, the office, or at home, we want to help make you better. Introducing our full, rich, instant nutritional energy drink, the Cafe Latte. Visit strongcoffeecompany.com. Use BBS20 to receive 20% off today.
To Barbell Shrug, we are here at On It in Austin, Texas, hanging out with Adee Cazayoux. God, I love that last name. So good.
It's like cashew, but not.
But yeah, close, but not at all. And we're talking nutrition. Before we left, I want to get into this idea. I feel like one of the hardest battles we all have as coaches and educators is building trust with people.
Right.
And we all have this cool little opportunity in our onboarding processes to break through some of those levels and some of the insecurities that people carry with them all the time that are really holding them back from their goals. What does that process look for you guys at Working Against Gravity? And specifically you, what have you learned that allows you to, you know, dig a little deeper, a little bit quicker so you can get the results a little bit faster for the people that are looking for them?
Oh, I don't know if I have like the best answer in the world for this, but I'll try.
You're relatable. Just say it.
Our onboarding process, basically you give us like a whole bunch of information about yourself and send half-naked pictures of yourself over to us, which
That's
is
key.
Yeah,
immediately
critical.
Not in the DM.
or on Snapchat.
Right. Please don't do that.
But
I actually only accept before and afters on Snapchat, so find me.
I only accept afters. Before.
Yeah, so I think that immediately puts somebody in the more vulnerable position. You're like, oh, I just gave all this information about myself. I just like really like kind of exposed myself to these people, and it's all digitally. We try and really do as good of a job as possible of reminding people that this is another, like a human on the other side of the screen, like an actual human being.
Yeah.
Tell you about your coach, just like you can get information about them. We have a little video of us interviewing them so you can like see their face and hear their voice. We have a whole YouTube channel that we link them to with all the different Facebook Lives that the coaches do every Friday. So you can really get to know them just the same way that they're getting to know you. I think also every single one of our coaches has been through the program themselves. So naturally you are like, oh, they've been there before. Like they totally get where I'm coming from. And we do much better job than we've ever done before of pairing new people with a coach that's most appropriate for that particular person. So we have a profile for each coach of who they work best with, who they prefer to work with, what types of clients they have the most success with, and then pair clients with those particular coaches on purpose. And yeah, we encourage all of our coaches to be vulnerable back with the clients and remind them, we actually care. Like this is not, we're taking your money, we're hoping you don't succeed, and it's a 3-month commitment, so we're hoping that you actually don't keep checking in with your coach. Our average membership is almost 6 months. Like we want people to continue staying on the program if they need it. And I think we do a good job of probably just letting people know that we actually care about you. Like we really do give a shit. So
how's the progress of your services changed? I mean, you're not still $50 a month for the services, right? So what's the average cost now for your
We only offer one thing.
Oh,
Doug
cool.
told me to only offer one thing.
Hey.
So we only offer one thing at one price, and it's $160 a month.
That's awesome. And as the value increased, there was like now you were saying like, oh, MyFitnessPal people can load in this information. What else have you been able to add to like create that experience to people?
Oh yeah, I mean it's so dramatically different from if you go back to that Barbell Business episode and you listen to the first one. We did everything through Gmail, and at the first like way we started this, it was literally like, oh, we have this problem. How do I fix this problem? So we had one inbox that the coaches would just like. We had 3 coaches, and we would just answer whoever could answer the first one was there. Like no
first come first
yeah,
serve. Like,
clients didn't get assigned to a coach. It was like all the coaches would work with all the clients. And then we did like different folders in one Gmail. It was workingagainstgravity@gmail.com, and it
like
was
in the
like
Google Drives or whatever.
So we had like different folders for each coach, and then we would filter the emails to go to those folders. And then we're like, oh wait, each coach can have their own email at workingagainstgravity.com. So we then went there, and now we actually one of our original members was a software developer, and he built an entire software for us that all of our coaching happens in this software called Seismic, and it's changed everything. Not just changed how our clients interact with our coaches and how much data our coach can actually see in one shot. So like when someone checks in, they can see their MyFitnessPal logs, they can see how consistent they were with their macronutrients, they can see their body weights, they can see their mood, energy, stress, hunger, photos, check-in summaries, notes for each day. Like they can see so much information, as well as their questionnaire, like the original questionnaire. That's pretty amazing, but it also allows us to do quality control significantly better. So we've always had a rule of every communication has to be answered within 24 hours. So if any of the coaches miss that, pops up on my dashboard, there's like this big thing being like, this person has one overdue, and like we can go and look and make sure that we're maintaining the quality across. We have 28 coaches now, so it's like a lot harder to manage that many coaches than it was to manage 2 of us all in the same inbox.
Yeah.
And out of 28 coaches, how many people are within your system at this time?
I promised I would never say it on a podcast ever again.
Got it. Okay.
Ever again.
Yeah. That's all right.
When you mentioned that you break your coaches into kind of what they're best at so they can better serve the clients. How do you break that down? Is it based off like like some sort of like keto thing and paleo thing, or is this like a personality-driven system that you created?
All of it.
Gotcha.
All of it. The only thing we actually don't do is we won't take somebody through like a legitimate keto diet, just because there's a lot that needs to be monitored at the same time. And we just don't have the ability to actually take that information. So whether it's like the ketones in your urine or different like biomarkers, like we just don't have anywhere to store that or monitor it. So we just don't do that.
So then, do you guys look at like food sensitivities with individuals as well?
We don't like get those tests,
right?
But we can like keep notes on that information.
Kind of type stuff.
Yeah,
with
so
them?
we'll do elimination diets. Well, like that's the amazing thing about being consistent with your nutrition and having this software to look at everyone's information. It's like, oh, they're eating the same things. I can look at their food logs. They're looking at these things. Oh, wait, we're seeing these changes on this day. Like, what was different in the past couple days? Maybe we'll try cutting out dairy and see how that changes, or we're monitoring their mood and their energy and their stress and their hunger, and keeping as many variables consistent as possible. You can start to draw a little, I guess, like causation, or try and make some connections between what's causing what, and therefore like try different things like an elimination diet or cutting out gluten.
Correlation or
sugar.
Causality, kind of like
Yeah.
which one is which. Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
I know with a lot of gym owners, they're super passionate about training and working out. Then they start a gym, then they get really busy, and then like their own training kind of falls off after a while. Did that happen to you at all? Like going from not having a business to now having a thriving business and being really busy?
Yeah. I was just talking about this the other day. So this is like, I have been through this like journey of, I think I started a little bit naive and a little ignorant of, I was like, oh, I'm always going to be fit and I'm always going to be on top of my nutrition and I'm always going to like look amazing. There's no way I'm ever going to have to worry about that. And then I'm like, oh wait, like that doesn't actually, that's like not real. Like, you work with all these different people and you see all these different things that people go through, and there's certain things that are in your control and outside of your control. I was still competing when I started working against gravity. So until 2016, I was definitely really on top of my nutrition, really on top of my training, like managing everything at the same time. And then I stopped competing in 2016, and I went all the way to like, if I'm not exercising to train, like why do I exercise at all? It's like, oh, I just don't want to exercise. Like this, I was so burnt out on all of it, and I just needed like a total break, and had to like learn through like the skills that I've developed of how to like still be in control and have confidence in my food choices. So I don't think working against gravity would be where it is today if I didn't take that break from, being super diligent with my training and my nutrition. But it's definitely been like a learning process and a perspective for me, like this, you're never done when it comes to nutrition and fitness. Like you don't reach this like end point and you're done. Like life changes, you have kids, or you start breastfeeding, or, you're a man and your testosterone's going lower every year you get older, like things change about your body. It's not like this, there's no end game. Like the game is just to do this just because you want to be healthy and live a long and happy, high quality life.
Longevity.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What actually has that, what does it look like now compared to what it did when you were competing?
What is my like fitness and nutrition?
Yeah.
Yeah. I right now I'm on like a solid roll. So I'm in like probably the best routine I've ever been in my life. I am super dialed in with my nutrition in terms, not just like tracking everything I eat, but I can make like super confident, conscious decisions about knowing like how much I've eaten in the day, and when it's appropriate for me to eat this and that, and just never like, even on my birthday, I made this conscious decision of here's the opportunity for me to eat like a complete asshole just because it's my birthday.
Yay.
And like, because that's what like a lot of people do, right? And just being like, no, I'm not gonna just eat like an asshole. I'm gonna have a piece of cake with a candle on it so I can make a birthday wish and eat it in a social situation, so I use it for the opportunity to connect with others, because there are certain pieces of nutrition that I think are underrated where it brings joy to a lot of people's life. And I think there's a difference between eating cake alone in your basement and watching TV and eating cake.
Especially in your basement. Yeah. That sounds hardcore.
Well, that's like everything. It's
like the voice of experience.
Having a drink isn't that bad.
Right.
Unless you're in the basement by yourself
with a
watching
bottle.
TV.
Yeah. It's just like there's different
the level of
time and
depression that
place.
comes with it is scary. What I feel like so many people, so you mentioned like the confidence and the consistency. How long does it take for, being in the fitness industry, whether it's on the training side, the nutrition side, but everybody walks up to you and they're like, here's my diet. What do you think of it? And you're like, oh, dude, I don't really know. I don't want to answer this question. Like, I don't know what you're telling me right now, but how long does it take a lot of your clients, or like, is there a process in which you watch them kind of gain that confidence so that they are comfortable? Because at some point you don't have to track your macros anymore. It's about just making really quality choices over a very long period of time, and you do that through that education system. But how long does it take them to really get to a point where they're confident in their decisions, and then they're able to just implement this as a longevity approach?
Yeah, I think on average, probably 3 months. Like 3 months of like being super consistent with, that's like an average. And then you have the other ends of the spectrum where people are coming with like a lot of emotional baggage around food, or a lot of things in their life are out of control, so it's a lot harder for them to get in control with their nutrition. And then you have people who are like super confident, already just like don't have a lot of like issues, and just are like, oh, got it, get it, that totally makes sense, gonna implement it in my life, I'm good. Like you get different ends of the spectrum. And I think like 12 weeks of being really consistent with your nutrition gives, or like at least trying to be, it doesn't matter if you're 100% perfect or you're not, just the effort is really all that matters. You'll get a tremendous education about what you're putting into your body. You're going to put something into MyFitnessPal or whatever app you use to track, and you're going to be like, oh, like that's what that is? You're like, whoa.
Because you get people on all levels of the spectrum. Like, we take it for granted so much, where it's like, I can look at a 4-ounce piece of chicken, and you're like, here's kind of what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And people you're not born with that knowledge. So you find people that are literally at the bottom, and they're like, I'm healthy, right? I eat pasta every night. Like, where did we learn that one?
Because
like,
you got a basketball game tomorrow.
Yeah. I remember my dad would make like the most gigantic pot of spaghetti. He'd be like, you have a game tomorrow. And I'd be like, I don't know if this is right. Like, do I really need all this? Like, if I eat it now, it's going to be ready tomorrow for me? But like, there's so much bad education in there that, you know, people just don't have the confidence when they're not getting the results, but they're doing what everyone's telling them to do.
Yeah.
But 3 months, I could probably learn some things in that amount of time.
I mean, even me, I've been really focusing on my nutrition since I was 16 years old. So it's been 12 years. 12 years of like doing different things with my nutrition, like really like it's been a main focus of my life. And I dial something in for 12 weeks right now. At this point in my life, it's different than it was 2 years ago. Totally. And I learned something new. I'm like, oh, wait, in this particular situation, I tend to want to eat more. Or when I eat this, it like actually makes me feel like bloated or gassy or whatever. And I'm learning things every single day. It's
what are you battling that's going on are you battling the keto thing? Are you pro, like, all these new little fads pop up, and you have to battle these questions every single day, don't you?
I get the questions for sure, but I really try and take like the dogma out of nutrition. I don't want to park in any particular camp. So I really believe that what works for you is what works for you. So the best nutrition program in the world is the one that you can stick to in the harshest of circumstances. So when your girlfriend breaks up with you, or when you're traveling all the time, and if that means that you have to eat higher fat because it changes up the types of food choices you can make, then that is great. And if that makes you feel amazing and you're performing really well in the gym, then that's great. Like, that's awesome for you. If you're using certain fads or diets to eat like an asshole, then I think that that's a different story. I don't think that that's a great thing, but I don't think there is like much out there that's like 100% right or 100% wrong. I think like I'm pretty convinced that sugar is probably bad for you. Like refined sugar is probably something you want to limit in your life. You want to limit your calorie consumption in some capacity. Like just not eat like so much or so little, like have some type of balance there. Exercise and eat as much whole food as possible. And I think that that's like solid.
Totally. Your average client is somewhere around 6 months, right? That's what we said earlier. 6 months is going to get you, if you start at 0, you're understanding macros, you're understanding like what a portion size actually looks like, and some sort of confidence and consistency and implementation over that 6 months. But I think that's also when like the real battle and the real journey kind of kicks off. I mean, it took me probably 10 years before I even started to learn about like gut health.
Right.
And now it's like the only thing I really focus on, because everything else is pretty dialed in on like the quality of food that I'm eating. Maybe the timing of it is pretty solid now, and I don't have to worry about too many things. But are you building that relationship with people and kind of hinting at, hey, once this is over in 6 months, like there's still a massive process to understanding what's going on and the relationship that you have with food and your body and your performance.
Yeah, it's like an ongoing process of like building a business and progressing. I really believe 2 years from now we'll be doing much more than we're doing right now. It's something I am super interested in. Like my favorite people to listen to are like people like Chris Kresser, who are really, functional medicine is up and coming, or I don't know necessarily how new. Sometimes you think something's new and it's not actually really new.
Yeah.
It's like
it's becoming mainstream.
It's becoming mainstream.
There's been internists and functional medicine people for a while.
Right.
But now it's like,
yeah,
it's on social media, so
right.
It's like, this is cool.
Right.
This is a thing now.
Yeah, guys like Chris
books.
Kresser really are pushing that whole model forward in raising the awareness around it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like encouraging everybody to be like, oh, okay, I do want to learn about this kind of thing. Oh, this kind of does make a lot of sense. And I think the more I stay engaged in learning about nutrition and health and all that kind of thing, the more it's going to leak into the business itself. I really believe it'll be in a completely different place in a couple of years.
It's so interesting because when I think about nutrition now, it's never on like understanding macros. Like I get that, but that process, like if somebody, I wonder if I was an actual nutrition coach, like where I would start that process. Like there is the base level of we need to understand macros, we need to understand some hormone levels, but I wonder how quickly it'd be like, oh, let's talk about this gut health thing. We need to really dig into because this is like a big conversation that has a lot of benefit, and I may not know all the answers, but it's something that we need to talk about a little bit.
I do think that sometimes a trap that people that are really educated and informed in fitness and nutrition get into is like you assume people know something that like you're like, oh, this is so basic to me.
Totally.
Like I don't need to teach them this. Like it's so basic. Like I don't need to learn about macros. But it's like 90% of the population like kind of does.
Yeah.
So you really like you think what you're saying is like, oh, this is so basic. I can't believe I have to say this, but you do have to say it. Like it really, I think. Going more on the basic side of things and not making assumption that this person already knows what you think they know, like actually just teaching it to them anyways, even though like we stand from a different perspective, like, oh, I get that already, like, but you don't remember what it was like for you before you understood all of that.
The thing I like about macros is that it doesn't require as much teaching from the coach because there's so much feedback built into the system of the day-to-day life of the person that's counting the macros that they have to like figure out what their numbers are and then look at a food, and if they don't know what's in it, they have to look it up and like look and see what's in it and then weigh it, and like there's a constant process of refiguring out, does this fit my macros, am I getting enough carbs, fats, proteins, etc., and you're getting the feedback all day long on every meal, every piece of food, every day. That constant process of getting the feedback inspires so much learning that you don't have to sit there and like tell the person what to do.
Right. Yeah, and you don't have to.
I thought you said wait.
No, I
was saying it all wrong. I was like, what?
No, right. No, totally. And the amazing thing too is like if I was just to tell you what you're supposed to do, there is like the 800 million things I could teach you. Like it's literally like shooting fish in a barrel. Like I don't know what it is that you need to learn, but the fact that you're going out there and you're getting this education for yourself, you can now come to me with a more educated question of, hey, I don't really get this. This is what I'm encountering in my actual life, and then it can provide more informed education from the coach to the client instead of just like teaching like going through random things that are totally irrelevant to that person and may not even be like, it's really more specific.
Well, it's almost like
back to your assumption of knowledge thing, like with my mom as an example. I don't think she said this specifically, but she says things like I had no idea there was so much fat in nuts.
Right.
And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like how the fuck? Like, in my head, I'm like, how the fuck does anyone not know that?
Yeah.
Right.
But to them, it's brand new information.
100%. I just went to the grocery store on my birthday, like a couple weeks ago, a month ago, and we got a tub of ice cream, right? So we get a tub of ice cream, and then Michael got this like cinnamony special case cereal. Okay, so we're like checking out, and then the guy at the checkout goes, "Oh, you're making your ice cream healthy," and I was like.
Like putting cereal on?
Right.
I was like, I'm just like adding calories to my ice cream already. I was like, I don't really know. But that's like, that's like really what's out there. So I think we are just privileged where we're around people that are having these conversations all the time, and we're listening to these podcasts, and we're learning from these amazing people, and we get to spread that. But I think if you go too high too fast, you lose people like right away, and they're just like, I don't get it.
It's hard to understand
we live in
where the bubble is so interesting. Like in this little bubble in the conversation, we have probably 50 plus years of knowledge and education just in strength and conditioning and nutrition. And then all of a sudden it's like, here's what a protein does. Like, this is the building block of your cell. If you eat this, you will be a lot healthier. And people are like, oh, whoa,
yeah, some
pasta.
People don't,
yeah.
and some people really don't understand that they're like not eating that much protein.
Yeah.
They'll like look at their first day of tracking their food. They're like, wow, I only had like 35 grams of protein today. Like I thought I was eating tons of protein.
Yeah.
It's like that's really what's happening.
Well, it's like you get the people who know just enough to think that they know something that makes your job that much more difficult.
For sure.
Right? And it's like in today's the social stratosphere, we're like information, but it's not all good information. And we get turned on to these trends, and then you're constantly combating that. I mean, every day I get a client asking me like, hey, I was looking at this thing, and I'm like, oh my God, just keep doing what we talked about. Like, stop telling me something new that you just read about that you're thinking you want to apply to your life.
I think that's like one of the biggest issues that you see is that people, we learned about this in the landmark, like the difference between making a choice and making a decision. And like a decision is based on pros and cons. Like, oh, this is good for this reason and that reason, and this is bad for that reason and that reason. Like you're making a decision between two things. But sometimes there's no difference. So there's no difference between doing this thing and doing that thing. So sometimes you just have to make a choice, and a choice is void of reason. Like I'm just choosing because I'm choosing. Like that's just it. And once I've chosen, I don't get to go back and choose the other choice. I've already chosen.
Yeah.
Like you choose this because you, for all it is and for all it's not, and don't be convinced that the other choice is better because that's not what making a choice is. Like you just have to choose just to choose and actually stick to it to even see if it works for you. It's when you hop from thing to thing to thing that you're just like turning around in circles, not going anywhere.
Yeah, I see that with like vegan diets. People will like jump from like a more conventional diet, and then they'll jump into like a vegan diet, and they'll be like, I feel so good, and it's like after like 2 weeks, and it's like, well, you're eating vegetables and you're doing this, and then they don't really understand like at week 5 why they feel like they're gonna die. And they really didn't do all the factors of the pros and cons to their lifestyle going into that direction.
Right.
And then there's that huge fall off, and then they jump into another thing. So it's just that information complex.
I think that can be good as long as the person is making progress. Like the more and more I get into the world of coaching people in any category, my biggest concern is, are they going to make progress with what I'm telling them? And if they're going to make progress and that's going to increase their motivation to take the next step and to knock over the next domino along the way, like that's the most important thing.
You just need to be on a path. It doesn't matter if it's the right path or the wrong path for you, but if you're on a path, you're going to be moving in a specific direction. And you might find another path while you're going there, but staying in this same spot, doing the same shit and like turning around and trying a bunch of different things, you're not moving anywhere. So it's really just about like picking one and just like committing. I use the example of I drive a Honda Civic, and like no one can convince me that there's a better car than a Honda Civic. Like my car is the best car.
Number 1 sold car in LA.
It is the best.
It's also the number 1 stolen car.
But
it's the best car.
That's why it's the best.
Yeah.
Free.
People would steal them if they weren't the best.
Free.
Yeah.
But it's the best car because it's the one I have and it's the one I chose. Like that's just the one. And until it's not the best car, like that is the one it is. Like you choose it because that's your choice. That's it.
A quick question. Have you found that the process of quantifying somebody's food takes the burden off the coach to convince somebody that they need more of something? So as an example, if I'm your coach and I look at your food log and there's no numbers attached to it, I'm just like kind of just looking like, oh, you had salmon in a salad, and then you had hamburgers, and then like I'm just looking at what you ate, and I go, I think you need more protein. If there's no numbers attached to it, then the person on the other side of the table might be like, in their head, they might be like, I don't know about that. I feel like I eat a lot of protein, right? But if you're constantly measuring what you're eating and you're supposed to get 120 grams of protein or whatever it is, and you got 60, you go, whoa, like I only got 60 out of 120. Like no one has to convince you at that point that you're not getting enough protein, because the numbers right there are telling you, like you're telling yourself you need more protein.
Right.
Just kind of like business people will be like, oh, I can't do that. My lawyer says I can't do it. I'm sorry. It's out of my hands. Not my fault. No big deal. Like you're taking the burden off the coach, and the person has the realization themselves.
For sure. For sure. And giving all of that information, it's not even just about like the protein, carbs, and fat. we have 14 different markers of progress. I think a lot of mistakes somebody makes when they're doing some type of fitness or nutrition journey is they only pick like 1 or 2 markers of progress that they're like latched onto, and generally generally they're outside of your control.
Yeah. Right.
So it's not really inside your control how much you weigh, other than on a specific meet day, and you kind of sometimes have to do some weird shit to like actually weigh that particular amount on that specific day. But it's either how much you weigh or how much you look, how you look, and or even how much you lift. Those things are kind of outside of your control. Like on a certain day, it depends. Like you can't really control it. There's so many different things you can look at, like just hitting your protein every single day and just seeing it. And I'm making progress on eating more protein. I'm making progress on actually being consistent, or my mindset, or my mood, my energy, my stress, my hunger, my habits. Like I went into work and there was donuts on the table and I didn't eat one. Like that's progress, you know? So just having like those clear markers in front of you to be like, I'm actually, it's motivating and educational at the same time.
You mentioned the scale. It's an actually really interesting thing to me, because after I stopped competing in weightlifting and CrossFit, I had no idea what an actual sustainable weight was in my life. And it was a 2-year process of me fighting to try to stay at my competitive weight.
Right.
When my body was like, absolutely not. We are not training this way anymore. We're not eating the same, like, just everything, right? And it took me literally 2 years to be okay and somewhat comfortable realizing that sustainable weight is 10 pounds more, 12 pounds more than competition weight. And, like, stepping on the scale at a weightlifting competition is a very different thing than stepping on a scale on a Tuesday morning because I have to go to work and actually be happy.
Right. It's very different, and it might be different for you 5 years from now. Like it might be a
different
number.
I hope not. I'm pretty good right now. I don't need to go up. We hit the 200-pound mark. We're going anorexic. It's going to be terrible. I'm going to be so depressed. I don't need to be there.
Go straight into keto.
I'm going keto. It has to be the answer.
Yes.
It's anytime we eat a meal like where Michael doesn't have like a carb in that particular meal, he's like, I'm in ketosis.
Yep.
It just happened. I felt the shift.
Yeah. Test me. This is super cool. Where can people find you?
People can find me at workingagainstgravity.com, at Working Against Gravity on Instagram and all the social medias. We don't do Twitter. I mean, I'm not really good at Twitter, but we don't do that.
You just have to show up. You just got to show up.
Yeah. We do Pinterest, though. I really like Pinterest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we like have a really cool Pinterest board with like tons of hacks and recipes and all sorts of different articles.
Our audience is huge on Pinterest.
Yeah.
Dudes love Pinterest.
A lot of DIY, a lot of DIY fitness tips, you know.
I made this out of what is it? A pallet.
Yeah. Popsicle sticks.
That's pretty much it. I mean, you can find me personally on Instagram at Adee Cazayoux. I post once a month.
There you go.
These days,
a blue moon.
Usually it's like, if I post, it's like some type of motivational lesson or something that I've learned.
I like that.
So follow me if you want to know what I've learned.
That's awesome.
And you can spell that probably in the show notes of this.
I'm going to need that spelling right after
Check out the show.
I remember it was like CAZ, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell the rest of it says.
Yeah, my maiden name is Zukier, Zukier. And when I married Michael and I took his last name, I was emailing with a lawyer, and he wrote me back being like, you're the only person I know that went from a confusing last name to a more confusing
Mr. Strong Coffee, the fuel of this show. Tell us about it.
Strong Coffee is a absolutely delicious.
Yes, he got it. He got it. See,
look, to say that
he
part.
told you to do the thing right. Now he's got Adam doing the thing right. Yeah. Do the one thing. Tell him it's delicious.
It's absolutely fucking delicious. So it's 100% instant nutritional energy. We're using cold brew coffee. Getting a good balance of macronutrients starting the day with 15 grams of protein, 5 grams of fat. We have our L-theanine for anybody who experiences any type of anxiety and jitter with the coffee. And there's a lot of other great things in it. Hyaluronic acid, coconut water extract, and it's fucking delicious.
And it's delicious.
And it fucking mixes well.
Oh, it
That's
does.
the key.
Yeah.
You just go like this a couple times, a little stir, and it's done.
Yeah, I mean,
no chunks, nothing.
You can do it in the little water cooler over there, the hot water.
Yeah, and
drinkable right away.
You just do a little wrist action as you're pouring the water in it.
We'll show you an exercise guide for the wrist action.
No.
Ooh.
Not at all. It's really impressive.
No clumping.
Yeah, I was shocked.
Yeah.
Because the first time he gave it to me, he had a single serving packet, tore it off, put it into some hot water, rolled the packet up, and then stirred it with the packet a couple times, handed it to me. No chunk, no clumps, no anything.
Rolled the packet up.
Crisp.
That's a ninja
Crisp.
move
Dude,
right
it
there.
was gangster. I was like, no fucking way. That mixed all the way like that? Just dissolved instantly. It was great.
Yeah. So you can
really impressive.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, it's been awesome.
You just keep fueling us with the energy.
Yeah.
do
And
it.
it's cool because a lot of people coffee is interesting because the reason that we're consuming coffee is generally because we're not recovering, and I really wanted to make sure that there were things in there that actually helped you recover. So maybe it's not always like, oh, I'm tired, right? So you can find me at Strong Coffee Company or at Von Rothfelder on Instagram. I'm on Twitter as well, and at strongcoffeecompany.com.
What a solid name.
Yeah.
Strong
Strong
coffee.
coffee.
Yeah.
Gangster
I mean,
name.
that is gangster for sure.
And anybody that's listening gets 20% off with the code BBS20. That's capital BBS20.
Yeah, Barbell Shrugged.
Yeah.
All right, Douglas E. Larson on Instagram, and of course everything Barbell Shrugged and Shrug Collective.
Right on.
So, yeah.
Follow the Shrug Collective on all the things. Get into iTunes. Get into YouTube. Like, subscribe. Leave us a comment. We're going to read it. If you want to come hang out with me, I'm at Anders Varner. More importantly, come hang out with us at the Shrug Collective. That's where all the cool stuff happens. That's where all the crew photos are. Cool training stuff. Coolest people in the game. This new little launch has been such an exciting thing. Really important conversations happening every day inside the Shrug Collective. We'll be back next Wednesday. See you guys soon. Shrug listeners, welcome to the Shrugged Collective Program Vault. Over the last 6 years, we've been leading the charge in online strength and conditioning programming and coaching. And for the first time in the history of the Shrug Collective, we're combining our 11 best-selling long-term and short-term accessory programs into one membership site called the Program Vault. From Olympic weightlifting to strongman, leaning out, nutrition, you name it, our 11 best-selling programs are yours for $47 a month. Get to shruggedcollective.com/vault, and you will find immediate access to our 11 best-selling strength and conditioning programs.